Let's start flying scarves over their faces.
Hello.
Hi Peter, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Gaurav?
I'm good. How's the weather back in Nashville?
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's springtime. It's warm and sunny.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd like to welcome you to our Beat Factory, Los Angeles producer sessions, and great to have you here. Thank you for taking out the time. I know you're busy and you're touring a lot, and it's really kind of you to sneak out and just give us a couple of your minutes. Really grateful for that.
No problem. Anything to help.
Thanks. I love your Moog T-shirt, by the way. I think there you go. So I think a lot of students are gonna hound you for having that, and I think the response is gonna be great. So Peter, we just obviously want to know, our students are people in India really curious. Your band Lynyrd Skynyrd is so popular. In India, of course, everybody knows about you. They know about the music that the band's putting out and stuff like that. But in India, since we don't have access to how this is really put together and all of that, we have a couple of questions that we've put together to ask you to get the inside story, to get to know how you've put all of this together, and basically you have a super career, and you've made it happen. So that becomes an inspiration to a lot of people. Once they hear from you personally as to how you started, what you did, what are the hurdles you faced, it's going to immensely help our people. So I think the first thing I'm going to do before I start the questions is ask you to give us a short tour of your studio. Can we just see all the keyboards and stuff and your favorite stuff all around your lovely facility?
All right. Well, we're going to start with the center piece, which is I guess it'd be my Mac, my Mac Pro Tower, which is down there. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I can. We can see it.
Yeah. But then I've got my Mackie Digital 8 bus, right? And I really love it because I can plug in all of my synths, all of my hard synths, and have it all going at the same time. Then, of course, I've got the MPC Renaissance, which is kind of the brain behind all of my MIDI programming. Okay. That if I don't do it in the hardware or in the DAW, then we'll move on to, of course, the Moog Voyager.
Beautiful.
And I'm wearing the shirt. Yes.
Yeah.
So we love the Moog.
Product placement.
Yeah. And then over here I've got my basically my Korg rack. Actually, back over here I've got the Triton, which is kind of sitting unused right now because I've got the M3.
Wow.
The Radius. There's a little Access Snow hiding away up there.
Yeah.
One of my favorite pieces, which is the Micro Korg, which is awesome. I use that for the vocoder. I use the Radius and the Micro Korg for two different vocoder sounds.
Wow.
We'll come over here a little bit further to the Korg Kronos and Kurzweil.
Wow.
If I want a different flavor, I'll use that. I'll use the Kurzweil for some of their strings. I love their string sounds.
Beautiful.
Then we'll spin around to the back side of the room. I've got an old Clavinet C there, and then another Korg Prodigy.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not being used right now because I've got all this other stuff.
Wow.
And we continue on around to my analog section, and I'll bring you over this way and show you. I've got the Vintage Vibe electric piano.
Cool.
Which is freaking awesome. I love it. It sounds so good. And
I'm sure it sounds as good as it looks.
Yeah. And then on top of this, this is the mystery board, and anybody who guesses what it is gets a free tour of the studio.
Okay.
I'll tell you later. I'll tell you later on the interview. And then down here, I've got the Vintage Vibe Vibanet. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
And the Hammond SK2, which Hammond was really nice enough to let me hold on to this and work with it. It sounds amazing.
Fantastic.
Then I continue on where I've got my Focusrite Sapphire 56 and the Universal Audio 4710D, which I use as a preamp for the analog stuff.
Beautiful.
And then we move on over here to the Nico LX5, 6th generation. I had it updated, actually
Wow.
the 6th generation. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can.
And
So
above that, I've got the Virus T12,
yeah,
which is another awesome synth, and then the Roland Gia up on top of that.
right.
So
So it's
this
a lot
is
of mix of analog and new hybrid and digital synths and
right. Well, that's all those are all my hardware.
beautiful.
You
So
know,
I think I asked the wrong question. I should have asked you what do you not have. That would have been easier to answer.
tell you what I don't have. I don't have a Mellotron, and I'm working on that.
I'm sure it's going to pop up before my trip to Nashville.
Might pop up today.
Excellent.
Yeah. I've also got a few guitars, Taylor guitars and Dean guitar, or not Dean, Taylor. I take that back. Taylor and Schecter have been very kind and have given me guitars to use here as well. So it's awesome. I've got pretty much everything I need except a drum room, which I'll be building at the end of this tour.
Wow, so it's all coming up then. I think we'll need another interview to see all of that new stuff.
Oh, yeah. I've got a whole 2-car garage on the other side that's ready to go.
Fantastic. Peter, that's brilliant. I mean, love your studio. I'm sure the students are going to be really excited to see all that gear and really inspired to ask questions. I think post the interview there's going to be some discussion. So should I just straight get into the interview? Should I just ask you questions because I know you have limited time to share with us? So I'll get into it. The first question, of course, is how young were you when you got into music, and how did you get into music? Yeah.
Let's see. Well, when I was an infant, the story goes that I used to climb under my parents' baby grand. We've got a 1923 Steinway M.
Wow.
And I'd crawl under there and fall asleep while they were playing classical duets. So by the time I could reach the piano, I was making noises. And I started classical training when I was 4. And
Wow.
did my first recital when I was 5. And basically, that's where it all started. I've had a very musical family. My grandmother had 6 children, my mom being one of them. All of them played in bands. So every time we went over to my grandmother's house, they'd be rehearsing in the basement. And I'd walk down there and watch them playing everything from Beatles covers to Paul Simon to Dr. Hook and the Medicine Cabinet to Rolling Stones. This was back in the
That's a pretty diverse catalog, and so you say that it helped that there was music in the family and you were growing up around music. That definitely
absolutely.
helped you, get into it or want to be a musician yourself.
Yeah,
So,
I felt naturally inclined toward it because it was around me all the time.
okay, that's fantastic. That's good to know. The second question I have is that when you probably reach your teens or just the pre-teens or whatever, did you set up a garage band? Did you have friends playing with you?
Oh yeah, when I was in 7th grade,
Okay.
maybe 6th grade, I think I was 12, whatever grade that was.
Right.
I started a band called Smeagol,
Okay. Wow.
named after Smeagol from the Lord of the Rings, and it was like a punk funk hybrid band, well before the Chili Peppers, and we did a talent show where we beat the high school kids band and we won, and it was awesome.
Wow.
But that was my first band. I played piano and sang. We did. I think one of the bass player's father wanted us to do My Girl, and I was like, yeah, that's cool, but it's kind of corny. So I did a funk version of My Girl, and we did 2 originals and won the talent show. It was pretty funny.
Brilliant. So you at that early age even like modified it to to a funk genre to make work with what you felt about the song.
Yeah, I changed it.
That's
It went boom da 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 boom ba da ba. Let me see if I can. Right, so that's what it was. I said, I think it should be like this. I got sunshine on the cloud. Oh, I can't sing it like that. Anyways.
no, but it's brilliant. We get the point. I mean, that's great. I mean, just to be creative enough to not follow what's being given to you and diversify and inspire to do something that you wanted and be very strong-headed about it is obviously but that's a sign of brilliance. That's a sign of early on being very clear of what you want to do and not just being guided just by people and having your own thought about things. So that's great to know. So it did start with a band, which is good.
It always starts with band,
that's,
yeah.
That's how you started. Okay, now we just heard your story about you crawling under the piano and stuff like that. But still, I mean, you're hearing a lot of music. Why keyboards? Is somebody in your family already playing the piano? Why were you inclined towards the instrument?
Yeah, because there was always a piano in the house.
Okay, so that's
You know,
the first instrument you had access to, and it.
Yeah, well, you know, it's really funny because the first thing that I did when I actually was able to get on the piano was I went, and I thought I'd written that. I was like, look what I just wrote. And I think I was like 5, you know. So, you know, that was outside of the classical Bach 2-part inventions and stuff that I was learning. Wow. So I kind of got right into pentatonic stuff and boogie woogie and blues, and that was, wow. I don't know where it came from. I mean, you know, my parents must have been listening to it, or I heard it somewhere out there in the ethers, you know. But it, you know, it moved me. So that's.
No, that's great to know that you absorbed and of course you in your brain you split it up and you did you got the idea as to what it is, the intervals and everything, and you figure it out along with the education. That's pretty brilliant. That's like that's a great start. So what we're guessing is that having influence and having training, and then of course having the talent and the time and the skill is essential. You need to have that. That kind of brilliance to get somewhere at that level. So that's pretty cool. Now just tell us a bit more about your formal education in music. Have you done all your grades? Do you consider that a more valid thing?
Well,
sorry.
No, it's okay because I continued classical training till I was about 12, okay. And then I started a band. Yeah. That's and in high school, there wasn't much of a music course for us to take.
Right.
In fact, there wasn't any where I was at. So I got a private instructor to kind of steer me into more jazz-based theory and techniques.
Oh, great.
And then when the summer before I graduated high school, I got scholarship to go to Berklee College of Music summer course.
Brilliant.
Which I did, and I went to that, and it was great. So I was like, all right, cool, this is what I'm going to do. And then I finished high school, and I went to Berklee. But within a short time, I kind of got frustrated with the whole schooling aspect of it because I wanted to be playing. Right. And I joined a couple bands in Boston and started playing around. And frankly, I wasn't ready for college. I was still a kid and still fresh out of high school, so honestly, I kind of partied my way out of the school. I got thrown out of Berklee.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I got first.
I'm going to hide that part from our students.
First, I got kicked out of the cafeteria for starting a food fight. Then I got kicked out of the dorms for having too many parties, and then I got kicked out of school for not keeping my grades up. So, it just so happened that some of the people that I met there had also left because they wanted to play. One of them being Jay Lane, who's the original drummer from Primus, plays with Bob Weir from Rat Dog, also played with the Charlie Hunter Trio and a lot of other people in San Francisco. Right. He called me and said, "Hey Pete, you should come back to San Francisco. I've got a couple bands I want you to play in." Yeah. So, that kind of segues into my real schooling, which was playing out in clubs and playing in the music scene in San Francisco in the early 80s.
Wow. So
yeah.
At that young age, you were already into the scene. You were playing, clubs and stuff like that. Early. So, wow. Yeah. So, yeah, that's interesting to know. So you basically, according to you, the good part was that probably had a teacher who went more into the jazz stuff rather than doing more classical and doing more, grade kind of stuff. So you got access to better like progressions and chords and things like that.
Well, I'll tell you what, the classical training gave me technique.
Okay.
Right, which allowed me to take all of the jazz theory and all that stuff and really play in a way that didn't hurt me physically. Right. Because people who don't play correctly always have terrible problems with like carpal tunnel and stuff like that. Right. And it gave me a really good basis for where all my scales were, all the fingerings were, and stuff like that. Right. So when it came to improvisation and embellishment and stuff, my hands naturally knew how to get where they wanted to go.
Okay, so that core training, that essential first bit of classical was important to then move to the next level, but it was not the be all end all. That was not like the only thing. Otherwise, you wouldn't have expanded into so many genres and things. But also the fact that going to Berklee getting admission there firstly, getting all of that, that's a big thing. But then, discarding all of that to naturally express yourself. I mean, it wasn't like since you got in there, you had to stick there and you had to, follow the regime which is being forced on you and put on there.
Well, that's a big reason why I left. I think why I wasn't being challenged. What I was seeing a lot of is it sounded like everybody was being cloned. This was right around the time when Ozzy Osbourne had, his big thing. So all the guitar players sounded like Randy Rhoads. All the piano players were sounding like McCoy Tyner.
Right.
So there was just this really rigid thing of you have to sound like this. And I was like, well, that stuff's already been done.
Right.
I want to sound different. And I kind of use that as my excuse to fail, really. But this is another interesting fact, is what I did pick up in Berkeley probably didn't absorb in my knowledge until about 10 years later when I started going, oh, wait a minute, that's a dominant 7, or that's a diminished chord, or that's dominant substitution, or that's a flat 1 substitution. So all of this stuff that I learned there actually did sink in. It's just I wasn't having the opportunities to use it.
You're not so conscious about it, but the fact that you did something wasn't a waste after all. It was something that was in your subconscious. And then you also now validate it, or you recognize it to be an important thing. Although you might have been, a rebel, or you probably didn't.
I was just too immature to really, figure out to study.
So it's good to know that that training is part of what you do, and it's an important thing. Okay, now I'm going to move on to another very interesting question. We know, of course, Lynyrd Skynyrd is great, and you're part of that, and you're touring and you're playing live. That's your biggest passion and high. But I also want to know if do you like making studio recordings? Do you like?
Oh, I love it.
Okay.
Live performance and studio performance are two entirely different things, but they have the common core of performance.
Right.
So, what is so rewarding about being on stage is that you get the immediate response from the crowd, right? Which is a ton of energy. It is like, and what we do is we transform that energy back into our performance. So, I kind of think of myself as a positive energy transformer. It's almost like a conduit, okay? Yeah. And that is amazing. There's a feeling that you get there that you cannot get anywhere else. And it's awesome because it's terrifying and humbling and unbelievable all at the same time. It's like, oh my gosh, don't mess this up, because all these people are watching. Which gives you that edge. And I really feel like time shifts into a longer
space.
Yeah, and it's amazing. It really is transcendent. It's a spiritual thing. Now, in the studio is an entirely different, yet similar experience for me, where I put down the performance and I really try to capture the essence of what I'm playing or what I'm trying to say. And rather than the audience there to capture it, I've got the medium, which is digital at this point, capturing that same feeling. And the gratification is that you get to play it and listen to it back. What you don't get to do live is you don't get to see your show live. You don't get to see your performance. You don't get to experience that. In the studio, you get to experience that by recording it and then listening back and critiquing it and going back and doing it again, and like I do, again and again and again and again, because
that's what I want to tell my students. It's like when you hear a record done by pros like yourself, it's not, we hear the finished product and we feel that, it's a brilliant line, but it usually takes so much forming, doing it again and again and again. Whereas in live, it's done. You can't go back to that.
Yeah, and well, that's where all the training comes in, because you have to perform and you have to bring it absolutely top of your game every time on the spot. Which also helps with my studio performance, no doubt. Being able to come into a session in Nashville, doing recordings on my own is completely different from doing professional sessions. With sessions, it's like, how many songs can we knock out in a day? So you have to have, your riffs and all your stuff in your head ready to go. But when I'm doing my own music, it's more of an exploration about how far can I stretch this? What can I fit in here? What kind of sounds are going to be appropriate? And I kind of let the song write itself, because I firmly believe that a song is a life form on its own. It grows from an idea into an arrangement, into a performance,
Yeah.
into a production. And, you can take any song and go in an infinite number of directions, depending on really what you feel.
But you said something very interesting, which I want to pick and talk about. Is that you said let the song play itself, let the song build itself. That means that, see, many times what our students or what people do is that they get stuck with ideas and they're like forcing it. Like, I have to finish
Yeah,
this today, and this is the direction I've gone with. And many of them forget to just let go. It's the times when you're doing your scratches and you're doing your when you're not under any kind of formal pressure to produce something is when that flow happens. Would you agree with that? Is that something that
oh,
you're seeing?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's when true art comes out. That's when your true expression comes out. When you allow it to have that space. And there is something that's taken me forever to learn by definition is patience, right? Because patience, by definition, is waiting.
Right.
So it has taken me a long time to learn patience, but I have grown to learn patience in the process.
Well, that's great to know that, and I think this is very invaluable information for people out there who have, because the media and the how it is with music videos and everything. It's projected so simple, and it's projected so in a particular way that people are kind of I think misled or misguided. But knowing this from you is going to be like solid ground for them to base or think before they get into this, or if they're doing it, to have another perspective on how the pros do it. And it's great to get your perspective on this. This is very important. I also keep feeling all the time, I tell my students, don't get stuck into that. Just don't keep listening to all of that music and aping it exactly. Yes, maybe
Right.
that's a starting point you need to copy so that you can at least get into a format that is understandable, but beyond that you have to build your own style.
Yeah.
You have to bring another very important question I missed, Peter, I'm going to get back to, is that you've got so many keyboards, you've got so many different instruments of different makes and stuff like that. And that's one thing. Now, when you sit at each instrument, does it inspire you differently, or do you
Oh,
feel that you're always doing one Peter Keys thing?
no, no. Every sound has a different song in it, or every sound has many different songs in it. I think I get inspired by sounds, by different loops, different sequences, different tones, different timbres, different chords. It again. It's very much about being aware of what the song is that's trying. I mean, we're vehicles. I consider myself a conduit for music. So if I really open up my consciousness to what the universe is trying to say, every sound will bring a different song. Yeah.
Brilliant. Now, I have a
Yeah.
strange question for you, but I want you
Sure.
to answer it very honestly. Is that do you know what Bollywood is? What Bollywood music is? And have you heard any of it? Or and if you
I've
have,
heard
what do
of
you think about
Bollywood.
it?
I have, but what I know, my knowledge is limited. I know that it is a film and music capital of Bali, right? I mean,
Of
that's
Bombay, actually, which is we've
Bombay. Yeah.
copied your Hollywood and we've made instead of Hollywood because it's Bombay. It's
Right. Well,
made
they call
Bollywood.
Nashville Nash Vegas, right?
There you go.
So it's like a hybrid
Yes.
of creative individuals.
Yeah.
We'll call it our sister country.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Thank you. That's an honor. That's coming from you. It means a lot. Great. So I think probably I have to get to Nashville and play you some Indian records and
You,
try to get you to collaborate with us.
oh, I think that would be great. That would be fantastic to come up with a hybrid.
We'll be bringing our Bollywood sounds, and of course that's one other thing I wanted to do is get you to check out our demos from the the Indian sounds and loops and have access to them, and then probably get you to incorporate some of that in some of the
Absolutely,
new things.
I would love it. That would be great.
That's brilliant. The last question, I know I've taken a lot of your time. The simple last question I have, Peter, is that what's the future? What's coming in? We know that you put out a record, and I'm going to talk about that record recently that you put out, and I want students to hear that record and look for it on iTunes and get it. Ah, there it is! There it is. That's the record, guys. This is from the man himself, Peter Keys, and that's his solo record coming out. It's already out, and
Yes,
I love the artwork.
it's called Autopsy Turvy.
Fantastic. It's a very catchy name, and autopsy is of course something that we know. So I hope I'm sure it's got some influence into the thing. and sometimes the titles reveal what the sound
Yeah,
and the
it
music
is.
is gonna be.
It's a statement. It's a political statement, basically.
Okay.
I try to stay away from that, but I can't for too long.
You're in India. You're talking to an Indian audience. You're safe there. We can
Right,
always get
right.
you there if you get into trouble. So that's great, guys. I want you to check out Peter's record, and we're gonna listen to it and probably discuss, and then probably get back to Peter and ask him how he did it.
You had one question for me that I said I was afraid to answer. But go ahead, because I think I have the answer. You know what I'm talking about?
I think I sort of just did is it's sort of like, what do you know about Bollywood? I think, is that the question?
Oh, no. If I had one...
Oh yeah, of course, I forgot. I'd ask you this now. This is a question. It's a weird question because keyboards don't work without electricity. But say you were stranded on an island permanently, and you're allowed not one but two pieces of gear you could carry from your studio. Okay, considering the other parts that you have an amp or you have headphones and you can have access to it. In the next 50 years, you're stranded on that island, and you have just about enough time to grab two pieces of gear and get on that chopper and get to that that secluded island. Which one and why? Which ones and why?
It'd have to be a big chopper, first of all. I'd have to say I'd grab my piano and my Pro Tools rig.
Wow, that's a very unexpected answer.
That's where it all started for me.
Wow.
I really feel like I need to play the piano.
You're discarding all your analog keyboards and stuff for a piano.
I'd throw it all away.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's why we need a big chopper. The weight is gonna bring the chopper down if you need a big one.
Yeah.
So great. So piano, I can understand. Of course, you want an acoustic instrument, and just to make sure that if there was no power and the Pro Tools doesn't work, you got the piano working.
Yeah.
That's
so
brilliant.
I can break it down and say, just give me a piano.
Brilliant. And the Pro Tools, of course, so that you have access to the soft synths and you have access to there you go. So
okay,
that's actually go ahead.
It'd have to be a piano with MIDI installed.
There you go, of course. And in fact, I wanted to share with my audience. I had asked Peter a while ago because I was worried about, I wanted to get a Juno 60 synth, and I was like, I can't source one at the price that I want on eBay. So he says, forget about that. Go for the Arturia series. And in fact, I want to thank you, Peter, because that inspired us to look into the Arturia series, and we've actually now had a deal with them, and we're bundling the Arturia Mini Lab.
Oh,
for
great.
every student, any student who's joining is doing that. But that's thanks to you.
Tell them that so that they send me stuff.
I'm going to call them now because they're working with many is to to oblige you for sending this. I'm sure they there's some stuff that they have that you might need, and I'm sure this is going to.
I'll wear an Arturia shirt.
Yeah, the Moog thing doesn't help. Although they aren't really competitors, they're emulating the Moogs too. So it's great. The last thing, of course, Peter, the unanswered question: what's the future? What do we look out for? What's coming up in terms of tours, albums, records, performances?
Okay. Well, I've got a project that I do, and we're going to be playing a lot of the stuff from Autopsy Turvy. And go to peterkeys.com to get this.
Great.
And this project is called the All-Time Low Stars.
Okay.
And it's featuring Kenny Olson, who's the guitar player from Kid Rock. He did all of the early stuff with Kid Rock. He and I have been working together for a couple years, and we're working on a project called the Cockroach Theory. Okay. And I don't know if you can see right there, but there's a cockroach.
That's brilliant.
And the concept behind this is, like the cockroach, if we just continue to work doing what we're doing without fail, without quitting, we eventually become successful by default.
Yeah.
So that this is, it's really important. The most important thing is to be persistent and not quit and never, ever give up. Like the cockroach, we keep running. We don't stop. So
that's great. We're going to take that as a
Cockroach Theory.
Cockroach Theory. So we've got Peter Key's Cockroach Theory, and I think that's a great message. I was going to ask you, but I think the answer is imbibed in the statement is to never give up, to keep pursuing. And this coming from somebody who's so gifted and has been is so talented and has such a long illustrious career, and having that kind of skill at an early age as well is still saying the same thing. For you guys is to keep at it, to build and never give up. So I'm going to end this interview at that beautiful note, on that beautiful direction you've given our students, and I think it's invaluable. Thank you so much, Peter. Namaste. And it's brilliant.
Namaste,
it's brilliant having you here. And I hope we can soon bring you to India, to Beatfactory Academies in Delhi and Mumbai to do the workshops.
It would be my honor. I would be honored. I want to take your course because I want to tell your students that you never stop learning. Never
there
stop
you go,
learning.
guys. If you join us now, you might have Peter as one of your colleagues or
Classmates,
co-students.
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what we can add to your already immense knowledge, but it would be an honor, of course, to have you in India and taste our food and do all the shopping and all the good stuff too. So
I love it.
so we're looking forward to having you, Peter. Thank you so much for taking out your time. We're really, really thankful. And we look forward to communicating more with you. I'm sure the guys are going to have a question on our forum. So at some point, I've got all of them together. I'm going to get you to answer some.
Perfect.
You have time next. You take care and you have a brilliant day. And let us not keep you from what you're doing.
You have a blessed day, my friend.
Thank you.
Namaste,
Thank you,
everybody.
Namaste. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.